Uncuckables.
Hello and welcome to the Uncuckables for another week. I'm Tim Wilms, Editor-in-Chief of The Unshackled. I'm here in the studio, as always, with David Hiscox, Editor of the XYZ.
It's great to be here, Tim.
And we've got, people will assume, a lot of people believe that he's gone insane, and so they think that tonight he's just out of the loony bin, James Fox Higgins of what's now Rational Rise TV.
That's right. We've rebranded, and I'm in the straitjacket as we speak. Yeah, totally bonkers.
You crazy nationalist, you.
Good to be back.
Now,
it's been a while, actually. It's been a good few weeks.
Yes, you've got one of those families
I
that
know,
we hear such bad things.
Wretched things that make me do stuff.
Well, they make you an extremist. I mean, you're polluting the earth.
Yeah, you're quite literally...
Oh yeah, I'm a Christ supremacist as well. We'll get that out the way nice and early.
What's the expression now? It's Christo-fascist.
Christo-fascist. I like that.
I like the sound of that.
Because that's what
I'll take it.
White Rose Society, they called Ben Shan, the Dusty Bogan, a Christo-fascist.
Christo or Christo-fascist?
Christo-fascist, I believe, is the term.
And what are the hallmarks of a Christo-fascist?
Somebody who believes that the word of God should be followed, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yep, that's me.
So I've got Entropy up and working. In case you don't know what that is, it's the YouTube enhanced software, which means that you can send through questions, we can do a poll, and also you can send through super chats, because this channel, we're nearly up to 500 subscribers, but you need 1,000 and a certain amount of hours to pollute YouTube with before they monetize you. But Entropy takes a smaller cut, so everyone's a winner until one of the globalist banks shuts down their account or whatever. You're able to
Everyone's a winner except Google, that is.
Well, yes. Well, I messaged you today. I had a bizarre situation while we're on that topic where one of my YouTube videos had more thumbs up than actual likes, which, is that even possible? Sounds like they're suppressing views.
You mean more thumbs up than views, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Unless you're buying thumbs up, Tim's.
No, it's not something I've considered.
No, but that, we know that's what old mate Pisspants does, right? For his videos.
Well, Facebook views, it's if you scroll, if you're on your Facebook feed and a video automatically plays, that counts as a view. So 0.5% of a second viewing a Facebook video, that counts as a view.
Yeah.
Does it actually give you watch time like YouTube does?
I'm sure it does, but
I've never found that information.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'd have to be on it to know. I'm not anymore. Thank Christ.
Now, James, you might be triggering the audience tonight because you've got your hairy chest somewhat on display. During my March for the Babies coverage in Melbourne on the weekend, because I was just wearing a t-shirt because it was a warm day, everyone was just drawn to my... You can see some of it now. It goes right up to my...
Surefire signs of toxic masculinity right here. Yeah, I don't wax.
I'm here with two Wookiees.
So there's a bit of a...
Hey, show us your arms, Dave.
Old hairy arms, yeah.
I know Maddie's quite hairy as well. There's a certain word to describe a hairy man which you're not allowed to use anymore.
I think it's ape. Maybe there's a correlation between hairy men and right-wing extremism.
There was actually, I got about 20 stories out for tonight's show. There was actually a study done which said that married white women are more likely to vote Conservative.
Yes, that's true.
So that's why the feminists hate them so much.
Yes, and call them breeders.
Well, they call themselves Extinction Rebellion. So, we're going to win, people. Yeah. We're going to win. It's just a matter of when.
Studies have actually come out, like guys who are stronger tend to be conservative, guys with higher testosterone tend to be conservative. It's just a natural fit. It's the arcade.
Well, I think there's a strong. I don't have the data behind this. It's just a hypothesis, but I think there's a correlation between agency and the degree to which men work out and keep themselves in shape, keep exercising, do things that are physically strenuous and difficult. And that agency translates into, an awareness of the dangers of the world, and that generally, if you're, high in agency and rational enough to view the world through that lens, you tend to be on the conservative side of politics because that's the side that reality is on. That's a response to reality. So, it makes a lot of sense that conservative men are physically stronger.
It reminds me, there was actually another study done, I think it was way back in 2013, 2014. Strong masculine men are more likely to have right-wing views, and Tony Abbott was Prime Minister at the time, and so the photo that they chose was Tony Abbott coming out of the beach with his hairy chest.
Yes. that is the best meme ever. Like, that picture has adorned quite a few XYZ front covers, and I think I use it as back before I started XYZ, I used to use it as my my Facebook profile pic, just to try to trigger some lefty friends. Yeah.
This is the infamous budgie smugglers incident, is it?
Yeah, the red budgie smugglers. Yeah.
Yeah, so such toxic masculinity there. I met, I don't know if I told you guys, I met Tony Abbott recently, just totally randomly at a cafe in a kind of small town that you wouldn't expect to see someone like him. But he was on a cycling tour, and I just happened to be in this cafe writing, and I saw him having lunch down the back. And as he left, I just he gave me a regarding nod, and then I went up to him and said, "Oh, Mr. Abbott, look, thank you for everything you did for our country and for your courage. You put up with a lot, and I commend you for it." And he's like, "Oh, thanks." And he just straight away wanted to know about me. And when I complimented him on his courage, he immediately deflected it and said, "It's nothing compared to these guys that I'm riding with today." I said, "Oh, who are they?" And they were all ex-military folks. So, it's a tiny little encounter. But I've always thought well of Tony Abbott. I've always thought he's a good bloke in the wrong business.
Well, he definitely still wants to continue public service in some way. We've actually got some breaking news. Do you remember Rep. Elijah Cummings? He's the Baltimore black congressman who Trump said, "Why don't you go and fix your rat-infested city?" He's just died at the age of 68.
Oh no!
Okay.
It wasn't from rat bite, was it?
I don't know, but we shouldn't speak ill of the dead.
Why not?
Well, he wasn't exactly the worst.
He was an old cat, wasn't he? Like he was pretty old dude.
Oh, 68. Trump's 73.
Yeah.
So he's
not so old. Yeah.
No.
Maybe it was the rats. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Baltimore. It's still not fixed.
It's a shithole. Yeah.
Yes,
so the question is, who's going to clean up the rat-infested shithole now, if not him?
It's probably some other black Democrat, probably.
Well, there'll be a special election, so you hope that there's somebody make Baltimore great again.
How about we just make it clean again? That's a start.
Well, Baltimore was once great.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's true.
I went to San Francisco in 2004, and there are only some parts of the city that smelt of poo back then. It's a real shame the way that it's turned out.
And they've got homeless tents as well. The supposedly most socialist state has got all of these people living in shanty towns.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi's district, I think, takes in a lot of those. Did you see?
I really don't think I have much interest in ever visiting California in my lifetime. It's like, of all the states of America, it's probably the least of interest to me now.
Lex Luthor did nothing wrong, really.
If there's something crazy like development coming out of America, you can probably say that it happened in California.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's probably also going to be the first state to secede, I imagine, or the first blue state to secede from the Union, and it couldn't go sooner. I think they should just blow the San Andreas fault line and push it out to sea. That would make things quicker and easier. But California has the gall to think it can operate as an independent country. But I heard that there's been an epidemic of Californians who are realizing, what they've done to their own state, who are moving now to other states, Midwestern states in particular, and of course bringing with them the same votes, voting for the same policies, and the same types of candidates that they voted into California and ruined it. People never learn. And it raises a really interesting question about whether people should have the right to vote in a region that they've just moved to, or if you have to have skin in the game in a state, in a county, in a country that you've just arrived in. How could you possibly be equipped to vote and not vote against the existent culture there?
That's absolutely spot on, because what we're talking about, people fleeing California going to red states, that's we've got the same thing going on with people fleeing from South America going to America, and that's the whole reason why
it
the
works at the
Democrats
micro and the macro level.
That's it. And so you could even make the case that it should actually be illegal. Like, you shouldn't let refugees come from socialist countries or socialist states to your state, because like people who vote a certain way and who vote for certain policies should have to live with those policies. Yeah. You break it, you bought it.
Yeah. But again, more importantly, the people who are already there, who built the environment that is being moved into, shouldn't have their culture taken away from them by foreign imported voters from another state, from another town even, let alone from another country and an entirely different culture. But to be able to admit it at the micro level in terms of local counties, then you have to extrapolate that out logically to the national level. And, people are really uncomfortable about doing that in the culture that the cultural climate that we're forced to live in at the moment. It's not okay to be a nationalist. Let alone to be an ethno-nationalist.
Or a secessionist as well. Like, if California, if they think they can make it on their own, fine, secede. That's why I supported Scottish independence back in, was it 2014? It's like, you Scots think you can run a socialist country all by yourselves? Fine, go ahead, vote for independence. See you later.
And Brexit would happen in a heartbeat if that happened too.
Well, that's the other bit of breaking news that I just knocked my news alert device. Boris Johnson has just reached a new deal with the EU. He says, we've got a great new deal that takes back control. That's sort of a Trump-style line. Well,
Believe me, you're going to love it.
Well, the politicians...
Nobody cares anymore, Boris. Just get out.
The politicians still have to vote for it, and even if they did pass it, then there'd probably be some court challenge where the judges would say, no, we've found some abstract precedent somewhere where we can just cancel Brexit.
Yeah, you took advantage of the aging Queen or something along those lines. Because
apparently the Queen, like, she just sits in Buckingham Palace and doesn't take in the news.
She just knits. She's got no idea.
Well, I count 14 days for Boris to make it happen, or he will be forever remembered as the second PM to completely fail to do his job in the Brexit debacle that's been dragging on. But he said October the 31st, didn't he? Was end of October they'd be out, one way or another.
The Halloween Brexit.
Tell you what,
because it absolutely will be the night of The Walking Dead, with the protesters who'll come out on that night when when they make the final declaration.
Yes, if they get out, it'll be the zombie apocalypse. Mind you, like, if he can't get Parliament to actually pass this deal, and if he can't get Parliament to actually agree to, like, leaving the EU, really, like, it's about time to call the army out on the Parliament. Like, do the old-fashioned approach, surround the Parliament with the army, like ring the parliament with soldiers and say, okay, you're going to vote my way. Like you've basically got a parliament full of traitors there.
Mm.
Well, yes.
Do it old school.
Yeah.
They're unwilling
hey,
to.
I'm only inciting rebellion in another country, not here.
I brought you.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not
That's
sure
right.
if
Perfectly legal.
you're watching the live feed as well, James. But I brought you back to Australia. You were just in a black vortex before.
Yeah, I did notice that you were zeroed in on my chest hair, so I'm glad we've gone back to my face.
Oh yeah, I moved it down because I think everyone had seen enough.
Yeah.
Uh.
It was going to get a PG rating if we kept it on the chest hair too much longer. This is a family show, guys. Obviously.
What the hell am I doing here?
Now we've got a local far right update.
Yes.
Because ASIO put out its annual report, and they said a whole bunch of. I wonder who the user is who's ASIO in this.
It's Dear Beltran.
Oh yeah, Dear Beltran's totally an intelligence plant.
Totally ASIO.
Absolutely,
Yep.
I've been sure of it from day one.
Yep.
And you know that the latest disavowal from the Senator Slayer, points to that as well. I think he's trying to distance himself from the intelligence agencies. Yeah.
Yes, because the Herald Sun declared her a far-right extremist, so it must be true. And Kathy Clubb, pro-life mother of 13, she was also a far-right extremist as well.
Well, you have that many babies. You obviously want to destroy the planet.
Yes,
So,
and her children, her 13 children, they're all white as well.
She's a far white extremist. Yeah.
Shut it down. Now, Kathy's awesome. Kathy Clubb is such a stand-up, awesome woman. Like, I had to congratulate her on Twitter when I saw her getting listed there, and the way they, of all things to demonize her for, they tried to make out that having 13 children was some kind of weird thing. I just said to her, Kathy, the future belongs to those who show up, and man, did you show up. 13 kids. The future belongs to Kathy Clubb.
Yeah.
So, and she's a great lady. She's a great lady.
Well, they also said she harasses women outside abortion clinics. I've spoken with Kathy many times. She doesn't. I've never felt harassed or intimidated by her at all.
I think she's incapable of harassment. What I know about what she's done is she has, personally been involved with helping women who are on the precipice of making a terrible decision of murdering their babies, and she has helped hundreds of babies' lives be saved.
Wow.
By just praying with them or having a conversation with them or giving them an opportunity to just pause and think about other options. And that's the activism that's been now made illegal in your fine state down there, gentlemen. She's an absolute hero. Kathy Clubb is an Australian hero, not just for having 13 kids, which is freaking awesome, which she homeschools, by the way.
Yes, that as well.
So she's had 13 children who she homeschools, and she has been responsible for saving hundreds of babies from murder. It's, she should be getting a freaking Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Not being chalked up as a right-wing extremist in these bullshit MSM rags that people read.
Wow. You've just highlighted one of the things that we saw something on social media which was put out. Apparently Ros Ward called out to the people marching in the March for Babies, do you support genocide? Yet she's on the side of people who are actually supporting killing babies.
Yeah,
which is a genocide.
It is. I have enjoyed
we have the moral
downfall.
High ground. Really do.
Yeah.
Because she was designated with, she did design the Safe Schools program, tasked by the state government to design that. And now, she's not only not in charge of that program, she's no longer an academic at La Trobe University. She's just yelling at rallies now.
Yeah. Nice to see her reduced. Yes.
Everyone needs a hobby.
We have got a super chat now from Fraser Hopwood for $5 US. Now James says he wants this to be a family show, so I'll just say to us, stop
thought
that,
it was.
stop that beep. See you next Tuesdays. I think he's referring to because I turned the air conditioning off.
okay.
The first one was a fail, and so I had to do it a second one. That's because I didn't want, because with the lighting it gets, even though it's a really cold, wet night here in Melbourne, it still gets warm here in the studio, and I don't think people want to see me strip off again like I did Saturday.
Yeah, so you
It's
just
a
have to turn
mercy,
off the
really.
gas.
Like,
Yep.
mate, it's beeps or boobs.
Yeah,
So
but
just
thank
deal
you
with
for
it.
sending through that $5 to instruct me to do something. I should make another annoying thing so I get more money.
Yeah, just don't get the boobs out.
Mm.
More beeps, less boobs.
Going back to, because I actually had a look through the ASIO report, and that was the...
Did they mention the XYZ
in what?
in the ASIO report?
No, they didn't mention any right-wing extremists. Okay. I'll bring it up now because I downloaded it. I'm going to block you for a moment, James. I'll bring up the...
Typical.
How do I...
Live without
I actually don't know how to... see if it...
Boom tech.
Oh, no.
Boom tech.
Hang on, I'll come back to it. You two talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, Tim's pretty boomer tech, hey, James?
It's all part of the show.
I know what to do.
He's actually a tech genius.
I know what to do. I've got
I
it.
thought we were going to talk amongst ourselves.
Ah, there we go.
Keep that beat going. I know, wait, we've got something going?
Yeah. Now this is what. So I've just highlighted how much Islam is mentioned in the report. You can see at the top there 20 times, and then I'll just type in. I just did find on page. So right wing. So go up here. So the recent tragic events in Christchurch, New Zealand earlier this year have brought the right-wing extremist threat back into focus. This threat is not something new, but the current extreme right-wing networks are better organised and more sophisticated than those of the past. What are networks?
Yeah, what are these things?
Regardless of the different vectors and threats, ASIO's role in countering terrorism is far from over. At the time of publication, ASIO, together with law enforcement, have thwarted 16 attacks in the past 5 years. To date, 93 people have been convicted of terrorism by Australian courts.
Are they saying that's 93 people convicted of right-wing terrorism?
No, they're just
That's
talking
altogether.
about terrorism.
Yeah.
Because this is just about, if I go back here, they're talking about ISIL, like they talk about all terrorism here.
Yeah, because I love the numbers because there was a piece that we read through either here or on XYZ Live where a journo was trying to beat up the threat of so-called right-wing terrorism, and they said that at least one right-wing terrorist attack had been thwarted in the last few years, and so they were trying to make a case that like it was just as big a deal as Islamic terrorism. But so they've got at least one, as opposed to all these other ones which were Islamic terrorism. Like they've got one basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll move on. Terrorism, the international security environment. Terrorists inspired by violent Islamist, extremist, and right-wing extremist ideologies reinforce their respective narratives by fomenting hatred and inciting violence to realize their ideological objective. Terrorist attacks globally, whether directed or inspired, are now indelible feature of the security environment. It says, ISIL approach to propaganda has set the standard amongst Islamist extremists, but right-wing extremists also continue to produce internet-savvy, sophisticated messaging. Are they talking about memes or...
Yes, they're talking about 4chan.
Yeah, they're talking about memes. Yeah, they definitely are.
What's really interesting there is they're trying to draw a very long bow because like there really have been very few lone wolf attacks by a couple of crazy white people. Like even the latest one where the guy tried to attack a fully armored synagogue, and he'd been given Bitcoin by a guy who he claimed was a Jew anyway. He ended up just killing 2 German people.
You mean as a payment to do it?
a payment to give him some support to actually do it. It's
Yeah,
one of the most
right,
bizarre things I've ever seen. It's the reason
Yeah.
why it's sort of disappeared from the pages.
Oh, look, you know,
pages.
I treat as a default, I treat every one of these lone wolf terrorists attacks in my mind as a false flag.
Yes, yes.
Every time, until there's sufficient evidence to believe otherwise, because it makes much more sense in just about every case that these are put up jobs, or they're wind up toys, or they're psyops, and people have been activated and they're done for political ends. I mean, we've seen, and people might think that sounds crazy, but there's just example after example after example that we throughout history that we now accept as being the true historical case, that these false flags are used to trigger wars. It's happened over and over again, and you can absolutely tell that the left wing media are trying to trigger war. All of these different factions are trying to trigger war. And they'll do it in as many different ways as they can, big and small, until it happens. So, you know, I think be very suspicious and treat everything as a likely conspiracy until proven otherwise. It's the only rational way to view history.
That's right. And the fact that they're talking about like extremist messaging. So yeah, maybe they're talking about memes there. It's like they've got like these basically false flag right-wing extremist attacks, and you've got C, right-wing messaging, which like all the memes, all the articles, all the videos that we all put out, where we're basically talking about the importance of like our people and our national identity, ethno-nationalism, Christianity, pushing basically our political messages. Yes, all these extremist ideas like a family, but there's no B in between. Like it's like they're trying to plonk them in the same report and say that there's a link, but there's no link. Like you need to actually draw a direct link between the two.
We've got the dedicated section now on extreme right-wing terrorism in Australia. We've still got, I think, another 6 right-wing extremes to go in this report.
I noticed it mentioned Islam 20 times and 10 for right-wing, though.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. The threat from the extreme right-wing in Australia has increased in recent years. Extreme right-wing groups in Australia are more cohesive? That's an interesting word. And organised than they have been over previous years. And
we're not that organised. I'm always late. Come on, people.
An enduring threat. It says
Are we the extreme right-wing groups that they're talking about? Because we don't get along or agree.
I think they're trying to plonk us in all together, aren't they?
Any future extreme right-wing inspired attack in Australia would most likely be low capability. So I think that means that not some like bomb or like machine gun. I think that's sort of what that means. And conducted by a lone attack.
Like a knife attack, low ability. Is that the kind of thing they mean? Like just
they took our weapons away. Yeah.
Yeah. And conducted by a lone actor or small group, although a sophisticated weapons attack is possible.
Right. So anything goes. So basically, they know nothing about what might happen.
That's so true. That's like when Donald Rumsfeld was asked about he was asked where's Bin Laden, and they said, what do you know about Osama Bin Laden? And Donald Rumsfeld says, well, we know that he's either alive or he's dead. And we know that he's either in Afghanistan or he's outside Afghanistan. But I've been reading this shit for 20 years. Like it tells us nothing.
Well, let's go to this. I didn't notice this section until now. Communal violence and violent protest. Australia continues to enjoy a high level of community cohesion, and communal violence is infrequent. Previous acts of communal violence in Australia have primarily occurred because of local or international or events that resonated with expatriate communities. The most likely form of...
the most recent, incidents of Chinese and Hong Kong students at Australian universities losing their shit at one another over what's going on in a foreign land. Those new Australians, they sure love what's going on here. They sure love talking about Chinese politics.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
that's
even
it. If it's not the Chinese, it's the Serbs and the Croats at the football. Yeah.
Well, there was also when it was about 5 years ago. Oh, it was even more than that. About 7 years ago, Muslim men in Sydney protested that Innocence of Muslims YouTube video, and they chanted, "Obama, we love Osama," and there was that small child holding up, "Behead those who insult the Prophet."
That's right. And I remember a few years ago, I think there was a worry over. I think there were a number of Indian students who were actually getting murdered, like in Melbourne, but every single one of them was a diversity attack. And they were saying they were trying to beat up the whole violence against foreign students, but it was always diversity versus diversity.
So I'll move on to, the most likely form of expression of communal tensions will be through public events and demonstrations aimed at drawing the attention of the broader Australian community towards specific issues. Violent protest in Australia continues to be rare, and the vast majority of protest activity concludes peacefully. Where violence has occurred has generally been opportunistic rather than pre-planned. Over the next 12 months, acts of opportunistic violence or civil disobedience at protests are possible, particularly those attended by counter-protesters.
So they're talking about Antifa. Yes.
But to say that they're acts of opportunistic violence that are not pre-planned...
That's wrong. Yep.
How many planning...
And they know it.
Yeah.
They're lying and they know it. Yep.
How many planning meetings do...
Half of them are funded.
Yes.
Like with the Aussie Pride flag march that the True Blue crew have held in Melbourne, like campaign against racism and fascism, I think they held like about 4 meetings beforehand to decide what they're going to do.
That's
and
very
they've got a guide like how to handle yourself on the day.
Yeah, and they've even got like their standard operating procedure is for there to be a group, and then one person will go out and do something of violence, and then mingle back into the group, and then a different person will come out and commit some kind of violence, and then mingle back into the group. So you can never sort of like pinpoint who it is because they're all doing it, but then they're all just relying on the security of the group to sort of basically hide who it was. You know what I mean? Like if you've seen
They really are like sheep, aren't they?
Yeah. Have you seen there's video footage actually, like sort of watching from above. It's like you've got basically a stream of Antifa activists, and like there's a bank or some shops, and so every now and then one of them will just pop up and break a window, and then they'll just go back into the crowd and they'll keep walking. And then a couple of seconds later, another one will come back, break a window, come back and keep walking. That's absolutely planned out. It's the standard operating procedure. Yeah.
Yep.
So going back to right wing, we've done this bit. This is a new bit here. Terrorism, the international security environment. Terrorism has remained a stubborn momentum in 2019 and will continue to evolve, representing a potent threat with global dimensions and risks. Terrorists inspired by violent Islamist extremist and right-wing extremist ideologies reinforce their respective narratives by fomenting hatred and inciting violence to realize their ideological objectives. Terrorist attacks globally, whether directed and inspired and narrated. I think I've already read that bit, have I?
Quite possibly.
We did.
But
actually, I think they just copied pasted and then just changed it to national, from national to international.
Yeah, that's basically what they do in these reports. They're very boring to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually the same thing because I'm up to 7. It's actually a repetition.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I should bother to read the.
It's a bit like Leviticus.
Yeah.
We should maybe we should make a point about academic plagiarism within the intelligence community.
That really is a really interesting. Can you actually bring that up again?
I just exited it.
Come on, Mr. Boomer.
I just exited.
I actually want to. I want to read that. I want to read that sentence out aloud again.
All right.
It's actually quite an interesting point.
Well, the folks at home don't need to see it. You can just read it out.
Yeah. Yeah, just bring it up. Oh, have you? You exited out of it. Okay, I don't need to read it again.
All right, good.
So basically, the way that the way that they're trying to conflate right-wing terrorism, right-wing extremism with Islamic extremism, and saying that they're both pushing the same, their own narratives. They're both a threat. I've been reading some other pieces, like when in the piece, like talking about how Ed Husic was like going on about how we need to take right-wing extremism seriously. The explanation for like why right-wing extremism has become such a big deal, it's like, we were focused so heavily on Islamic terrorism that we ignored right-wing extremism, and we don't know where it came from. It's this bizarre, like either they're retarded or they are just deliberately lying to us, because
no, look, it's just that the government, the voting patterns of the of the polity have been shifting gradually and steadily towards the left, largely in part due to the demographic changes in Western countries. So as the governments slide to the left, they have to make a boogeyman of the right as they go, and that rhetoric's only gonna ramp up more and more and more, because they don't want to lose the power that they're gaining, and they have to make normal, everyday, sane, family-oriented white Christian people in their own countries into the bad guys. And that begins by making people like us, right-wing extremists, and putting us in the same basket because of the things we talk about, with people who are prone to go out and shoot up, various synagogues and mosques and whatnot. Put us all in the same basket, because once you've got us in that basket, the people who are talking publicly about these things, then you can very easily put the people who agree with us who aren't talking publicly about it in the same basket. And then a few more steps, and then you can just color by race, just go, okay, white people, terrorists. That's 20, 30 years down the line maybe, but that's where it's headed. And of course it will go there. It's going to go towards an ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, it's and the reason that we're actually piping up about this is because they've been completely ineffective in stopping Islamic terrorism. We've gone to war in the Middle East, but then we've ramped up how many immigrants we take from the Middle East, and then we wonder why we've got all this extreme, like all this Islamic terrorism going on in the West. And so of course, everybody in the West has gone, well, our countries are being taken over, we're being demographically replaced, and if every now and then you're going to get a crazy person, or you're going to get a false flag. So it's like they see it's like they've done a false conflation here, when really, like, the reason that you've got nationalism on the rise is because they're like literally trying to replace us, and they're literally bringing the terrorists in.
Before we form our final views, because this has had a run in the news cycle today. It was mentioned in the Guardian last night, and it was mentioned on Sky News today. Before, I'll take this opportunity while I've got the mic to read out a super chat from Mark Reed for $10 US. Thank you very much.
Hey, Mark!
I took my children to the March for the Babies, and they saw the difference between those who love life and those who hate life. Well worthwhile. Well, that's what Avi Yemeni's video focused on, because he, spoke to both, and yeah, that was pretty obvious.
Yeah, and good on you, Mark. You're a legend. It's like I said before, the future belongs to those who show up, and you've shown up, mate. Keep teaching your kids well, and say hi to them for me. Mark's a good dude.
And I've put the entropy link in the chat again. So obviously people are in the generous mood tonight. So head on over, send us through a super chat, or if you want to contribute for free, you can always ask us a question. Though people last week, they cheated, remember? They put through statements in the questions thing when they're not questions.
Yes, you're having none of that tonight.
No. So they have to be...
Read before you read aloud.
While we're on this topic, Ed Husic, he's the Labour Bosnian Muslim MP. He made a speech in the Federation Chamber last night. I'm going to go over your face again, James.
Bye.
This will actually
work.
I
had plenty of screen time during the article reading before, so yeah, I'm happy to disappear for a moment. I'm back.
The rising tide of right-wing extremism in Australia needs to be taken more seriously, Ed Husic said. And this was in the Federation Chamber, which it's like a secondary House of Representative chamber, where, like, if you want to just, say stuff, and there's no room in the proper House of Representative. You can just go to the Federation Chamber and just say whatever. You're still covered by parliamentary
So I
privilege.
take it then that there'd be a lot of speeches like in this outside room, the secondary chamber.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah, there's quite a bit that goes on.
And most of it would be ignored.
Yes.
And so the media is picking up on this. Yeah.
We have got to take seriously. Am I allowed to say that word?
Yeah, do it.
White supremacists and far-right extremism.
But hang on, we've got to read that out again. Hang on, go.
We have to take seriously white supremacists and
far-right
extremism. We need to take this seriously. We need to deal with it now. His comments have been backed by counter-terrorism experts calling for increased vigilance for extremist threats. So he's mentioned there was a man with a machete in the Holland Park Mosque in Brisbane. They terrified 4 worshippers. There was the same
Ramadan
mosque
worshippers?
had a graffiti attack last month where swastikas and a reference
Graffiti attack.
a reference to the suspect behind the Christchurch terror attacks. We've had
Man, if it was swastikas, if it was swastikas being drawn on a mosque, I suspect a Jew. Quite frankly.
Well, we've had all those in Melbourne. There seems to be like one happening like twice a week. Swastikas drawn on Jewish businesses.
They never find the culprits.
No,
do
they
they
never found the culprits.
All this footage, and they never find them.
Yeah.
I just love the conflation of language that they slip in here, and they just repeat it enough times that people start swallowing it as making any sense. Graffiti attack. It's either graffiti, which is vandalism, or it's an attack, which is an assault on a person, right?
Yeah,
Did the graffiti leap off the wall and start hacking at somebody with the edge of a swastika?
Yeah,
graffiti can't attack you.
It's basically a Nutter Brenton. Yeah.
It could have caused a triggering fit.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, because feelings, hurt feelings is a form of violence, I guess.
I didn't think Muslims were that triggered by swastikas.
So Ed Husic goes on to say, this isn't right, and it's raising a point and reinforcing a point that I've been raising with the government. This stuff is rearing its head in the US. We've seen a number of times this year people have been victims of some terrible behaviour that has resulted in the loss of life. He goes and mentions Christchurch here, going back to 2011, Anders Breivik, the 77 people he killed, Dylan Roof, killed 9 in the African American Church, South Carolina, 2015. Oh, and then of course you have the counter-terrorism expert, Clive Williams.
So they mentioned 3 over the course of
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
And,
and of course, but because this particular tirade is focused on what they call white supremacy and far right extremism, they're going to leave out the dozens of attacks on Western soil from Muslim extremists, because that's not relevant here. We can just zero in on the particular group that we want to demonize right now, instead of having a sober conversation that brings all the statistics together and tries to analyze the source of these problems and the source of this civil unrest that's leading people to violence. No, they're not here to diagnose problems and find actual solutions. They're here to create demons to turn the unthinking masses against. That's all they're doing.
Actually, I think there've just been a couple just in the last week. There was the Muslim who killed 4 policemen in Paris, and there was I think there was a stabbing attack or something in a British city just this week as well.
But they focused on the synagogue attack in Hesse, Germany.
Where the guy shot 2 Germans. Yeah. And they said the other 2 were like, one was apparently a love story gone wrong, and the other one was they had no motive.
I'm not going to bother reading that counter-terrorism expert. He's a nobody. He's not worthy of us. I mean, Ed Husic is an elected politician, so I'll continue. Like, the article goes back to what he was saying. The point is this: I don't care if it's an Islamist-inspired or supremacist-inspired. If it represents a threat to the Australian people, it should be taken seriously. And I'm telling you now, based on the briefings I've received, we're not taking this seriously. We reckon that we're only following a few people on this issue here in the country.
There's not enough demons. We need more demons.
This is worth reading out by Professor Clive Williams. There's an awful lot of public resources out there, and they are fairly limited national security resources. This is the other thing. ASIO have said, if you want us to do more, give us more money. And so it's beholden on people more generally to keep their eyes open, and if they have a concern, talk about it. We know in this day and age, with the rise of the lone wolf, we can't track these people easily. The
rise of the lone wolf, what nonsense. As if there's any more crazy individual attacks happening now than there ever were throughout all of human history. There's always some, screw loose psychopath who gets some guns and goes out and does some crazy stuff, or gets a knife and goes out in the streets on a rampage. It's always happened. It always will. And when they're almost always completely insane, and it's almost always, not appropriate to assign them to a particular political ideology or religious ideology. Sometimes it is, but most of the time, these people are just nutters, and they're just, they're either pushed deliberately to create the false flag that the politicians need, or they fall off the edge for whatever reason.
We've got a special guest on now, Senator Slayer. We've just been talking about far-right extremism. There's actually a far-right extremist on trial in Melbourne this week, which you've been following.
Yeah, mate. You probably heard about old Philip Galea. Now, I knew Phil. I met him once, I think, back during the UPF protests in 2015. He was in the media a lot back then. He was raided for having cattle prods. Interestingly enough, a so-called patriot, gave him cattle prods, about 12. They're like tasers, but they're legal in Australia. So he had 12 cattle prods, and the federal police raided his home. After that, he was released, and they had to drop the charges because it wasn't illegal. They raided him again, and literally threw a flashbang through his window and landed next to his head. And went off and gave him a lot of hearing damage. He's at the Supreme Court at the moment. I went down today. This is the final journey for his trial. He's fighting 2 charges. He's been charged with preparing for a terrorist attack and also producing documents to persuade others to commit terrorist attacks.
I'm looking at the news.com.au article. He said he wanted to publish a Patriots cookbook, which is obviously a play. There's the Anarchist cookbook, which tells you how to make weapons and bombs and other things.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated. Now, I've been in the Patriot movement for a long time, and you get a lot of people in it. And I wouldn't say a lot. You get a few who want to impress others. They're usually lonely type people. They want some attention or to impress the others in the group. And I think that was what he was doing. He's definitely harmless. And we even had someone on the left who actually went to one of his trials last year, Karen Bennett, an anarchist. He actually went into his case, and he even came to the conclusion the guy wasn't going to do anything. He was just basically role-playing for attention and kind of trying to impress people in the Patriot movement. And it shows you how extreme people are in the Patriot movement. Everyone he tried to impress with these stories and his plans, etc., everyone dobbed him in. So no one actually went and played ball with him to do anything. But the funny thing is, his threats, these are his threats. I've got to be careful what I say, but I'll say what's in the media and what I heard today in court. His threats are to collect snake venom and put them on barbs to allegedly kill lefties. Also to dig a tunnel system under Melbourne. Now,
another tunnel system. Another tunnel system. We already have a tunnel system.
Deep tunnel. Tunnel gate.
This just shows to the average person the guy is not serious, if you know what I mean. He's a very eccentric character. Like, I met him once. I don't know him. None of us really know him. I met him once because during that time when he first got raided, the media claimed that he was a UPF member.
Oh, it says here True Blue Crew, the news.com.au, True Blue Crew and Reclaim Australia member. It actually doesn't mention the United Patriots Front in this article.
Yeah, but this was back in 2015. So when he first got raided back then, the headline was UPF member. So I went to meet him and do a video with him to explain that he wasn't part of the UPF. So that was back then in 2015 or 2016. But he basically was just an admin on the Reclaim Australia page for Victoria. But it stinks, man. This whole thing stinks. Like, I went in there today. I seen him in the witness box. The Supreme Court's a really upper class type of courthouse, I tell you. He's got I think it's 13 jury members. 14, so 13 of them are women. I won't say who they are, obviously that's illegal, but they're females, and from what I could see, they're all left-wing boomers, okay? And the one guy on the jury, which is amazing how you have 13 female jurors, the one guy is a massive lefty. You can tell straight away. The guy isn't going to have a fair trial, but his defense is. So the two charges are, he's being charged with preparing to commit a terrorist act. He's saying he made it up to flush out informants within Victoria Police. He made up these crazy, which it does make a little sense, these crazy like snake venom weapons and digging a tunnel system. And the other one is the Patriots cookbook. He tried to imitate the anarchist cookbook. He said he did that for the upcoming apocalypse when we go into civil war, and not to use now. But, mate, the guy should have just been honest from the start. The honest thing is the guy's trying to impress people. He was never going to do anything. But as the Victorian police are and the prosecutors, they want to make an example out of him to tarnish us all.
Well, he's clearly unbalanced. Even if you're saying these things to, like if you think they'll impress, like people, if somebody came to me and said they wanted to do that sort of stuff, I'd run a million miles away from them. Like, it's pretty, like, it is like you know, when I first saw what he wanted to do, I thought like I did laugh because it's so absurd and crazy. But yeah, like I think that.
Well,
yeah.
it sounds like he's LARPing as a revolutionary, and it's pretty obvious from the particular threats of snake barbs and underground tunnels that it's ludicrous. So that they're taking it seriously is, you know, not only probably a gross injustice, but a waste of taxpayers' resources in the court system to put this thing through.
Man, I tried to dig to China when I was 5.
This is
keep an eye on
this
me.
is actually the bit which I thought was most crazy and made me laugh. He wanted to fight the left using acid injections. I've never heard of such a thing. Electrical shocks.
Oh, that'll explain the cattle
Brittle.
prods, yeah.
And
Savage.
throat cutting. The
Oh, okay. Well, that's a
the
little bit more
Supreme
straight up.
Court was told. And then there's a whole bunch of... I won't read out the profane threats that he made.
Yeah, but it's like if I was to tell you, Tim, and I'm going to be very careful with my words right now. Let's pretend I wrote a thesis on building a machine that's going to collect dark matter, and I'm going to use that dark matter to create an explosive device. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No jury in the land or prosecutor will take you to court for that. Look, I get what it sounds bad, but I'm telling you, this guy is a dead set dreamer. He's not going to do anything. You have to prove that the guy was actually going to do it, and I think they might actually prove it because his defense is it's crazy. His defense is crazy. He's going to lose on this defense.
It's
So
ironic.
what sort of sentence is he likely to be up for, Neil?
No idea, but I'm telling you, it's going to be big. I know the magistrate's court is, I think it's a 4-year maximum sentence the magistrate can impose.
Oh, but he's in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but the county court is, I think, 10 to 20 years. So the Supreme Court, mate, he could probably
Beyond
get 40
that.
to 50 years.
Far out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, he's been in custody, it says, since 2016, so...
He's been in there a long time.
Yeah.
That's LARPing gone really, really wrong.
Yeah. So, lesson is, like, if you're going to shit talk on the internet, don't take it to that absurd, crazy level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, I'll let you go. Good show.
Cheers.
Thanks, Neil.
Bye.
See ya.
Now, we've got another guest coming on as well. We've got, because there wasn't just the March for the Babies that was happening on Saturday, there was also an Australia First rally outside the Box Hill police station because of course they raised the Communist Chinese flag on the anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. Lad Society, they held a demonstration there. Hey, I've got to do the transition here so I can fit both of you on the screen.
Do your magic, Tim. Whoa! Look at that. We've got a big window.
Australian Meditations, Stefanous, he's answered it. He has this... Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear.
I'll have to do
Hey,
some readjusting of Skype. We can see James. We can see James's chest hair again.
Oh no! Hey, I've got to duck out just for a sec. I've got a far-right extremist dog out there scratching at my door, so I just got to deal with him, and I'll be back. So, bear with me.
I'll just readjust my thing over end. Just let me know when to stop.
You've got a weird. Yours is a square webcam. Everyone's gonna be pissed.
David needs to move to the left, mate.
Yeah. Oh, it's to the
there we
far
go.
right.
To the far right. In
Yeah.
the studio, it's the
Yeah.
far right.
I'll move to the right.
Yeah.
And if we do it together, hang on.
Yeah.
we can
Oh,
both
well,
be on the
wait
far
until
right,
I
yeah.
think I've got to switch it. No, you've got to move back. You've got to get back in frame.
Okay,
now.
that's fine. I think that's good. I think that's good, man.
We can only see. Yeah, you've got to go. Yeah, like that because. Yeah, your cat. Well, here's James. He's he's like going really. It's really
That's all right.
weird.
I'm gonna fix it now. Hang on,
Yeah.
stay there.
Yeah.
I'll move. Okay.
We have got a super chat over on Entropy from Rusty McClee for US $5. Can I have no ID, be a foreign citizen, and still vote in Israel? Is Australian government electoral office inept for allowing it to happen here? I'm not sure what you're referring to. Permanent citizens can vote, can they, or is it only Australian citizens?
You have to be an Australian citizen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I hope that's not happening. And we've got a few questions. Do you think this is
no,
zero
wait.
tolerance? Do you think we will ever stand up
Yes,
collectively enough to stop the takeover of our country? I hope so.
Well, in light of what we just listened to about the the heavy charges coming down on somebody for inciting a fairly fake revolution, maybe we shouldn't comment.
We've got Antonic 76. Canberra is to have another Extinction Rebellion storm tomorrow at 5:30 p.m, blocking roads and being all dramatic. Will they be carrying on in your city again tomorrow? Melbourne, far left, they're always up to something. And then Zero Tolerance has got... isn't it somewhat reasonable to fall off the edge if you see both your present homelands and historical homelands occupied by a historical enemy?
Fair call.
Well, it's understandable, you know. It's you can definitely empathise with people who flip their lids, but you know, the degree to which that happening is effective in fixing anything is the degree to which it's probably irrational, you know. But you can empathise for sure.
Stefanos, you've still got to move over to, I think, your left, because you're still
My
out of
left.
frame. Yes.
Go far left, mate. Far left.
Yeah.
Bear with me.
Yeah, your camera is not as
There you
bad
go,
as it
there you go.
normally is. I think I'm blocking James now.
Okay, I think it's all good now. Yep.
Yeah.
Cheers.
James, you've got to come back in. You've got to go to... Can you see yourself now? You've got to go to the... no, I think you're okay, because... Yeah, you are okay. I'll actually get rid of it's the green screen now, so I'll get rid of that. I'll make you black
This
void
has
again.
been the most riveting 5 minutes of the Uncuckables ever, yeah?
I like, you know, never let Boomer Tech go unnarrated.
Excuse me. I'm the super producer here.
You do a fine job, Tim. I wouldn't want to be in your chair.
Well, Stefanous, he normally, when he comes on, he jolts the camera like all around, and it's actually been better tonight.
Oh, good.
So let's hear about this communist flag and the fallout.
Yeah, we've got the footage to play when you're ready, if you like.
Did you want to play it first, or do you want me to explain what happened first?
What would you prefer?
I'll explain it if you want. Yep.
Yeah.
So that was on last Saturday. I went to Box Hill with about 14 other people. Well, about 14 other patriots there, but only about eight or nine of us made it on time. The other 5 of us came a bit late. And there were some people there. So I'm a bit sick, so forgive me if I'm start coughing randomly. But basically, there were a few people taking photos of us, just randomly. And obviously they were Antifa members. And at first they were just individuals, just maybe 2 or 3 people passing us, taking photos and video. And then towards the end, there was actually maybe 10 of them, or 8 of them. who just like formed themselves about 30 meters to our right. Just they weren't shouting. They weren't shouting at all. They were just standing there, doing nothing, and pretty weak effort. They weren't. I would have thought they'd start screaming or something, or yelling, as they say, yelling at racist dogs. But it was pretty quiet. We just had our protest. We had about 20 minutes, and Susan, who was an Australia First Party candidate, gave a speech there. I had a Eureka flag on me, had a bit of a chant. But the whole thing lasted about 25 minutes, and then we spent more time just loitering around, talking amongst ourselves, and that was pretty much it. And I think Neil made an appearance later on as well.
Yeah. I'll play the vision now, because give you a bit of a chance to get that cough sorted out.
Cool, thank you.
I've got it here.
Is it ready? I can't even see anything.
The audience can still hear us.
Cool.
Nice boomer tech there.
That's me with the Eureka flag, by the way. Just making sure everyone knows.
Look at it blowing. It's beautifully blowing. That's a lovely breeze on that flag. You must have been proud.
100%.
Look at it furling out like that.
Boats when docked and staged an open visit for the public to board their vessels. It was the Chinese public dutifully lined up to be taken a tour. Spies were present and were photographing even Australians who happened by. A small contingent of nationalists showed up to protest and found they were being photographed by these foreign spies for future reference. For when the time comes, for when resistance must be stamped out. The Chinese community had been informed ahead of time by special communications and were expected to show up. How's that for having ready-made forces of invaders waiting like sleeping cells inside our own borders? There was a demonstration of military strength and a reminder that if need be, they can slip into our country anytime they want and nothing can stop them. But why worry about military invasion when you have appeasement like that shown by Box Hill Police on the 70th anniversary of Chairman Mao's revolution? What does it matter when the Premier of this state is leading the way by signing us up to economic bondage to China, which automatically brings all the rest? When justifying the flag over a week ago at this station and the singing of the Communist Chinese national anthem, they were doing the military's work for them, softening Australians up for a change in order. Have you ever heard of the butterfly effect? The butterfly effect is when a member of Chinese Politburo lifts a pen in Beijing and the Victorian police start doing their bidding. The Commissioner and all his lackeys justified this outrage with double speak. They were most likely taught by the Chinese. They spoke of working closely with the Chinese community as that was meant to mean something. If they flew the flag of
Nice
every
dog.
country whose community was here in Box Hill, the Box Hill police station
It was a pure breed, by the way.
United Nations.
Just making a subtle point there.
It's too bright for us to miss. We know that Premier Daniel Andrews signed a memorandum of understanding by Victorians to join China's One Belt, One Road initiative. The One Belt, One Road is not about trade that benefits the countries which sign up to it. It is about creating an economic and military path for China to rule the world. They've said so. As soon as these countries take the money and are unable to pay it back, the Chinese will see something of strategic value to them, like a port or a nation's power supply. In Australia, there is no need to be so rough, since we have a class of traders willing to sell everything of importance to us to China. They are selling our farmland, which grows the crops that we need to eat. They are selling our mines, which contain the minerals and coals which we might otherwise use to power our own industries. They are selling our cattle, our power supplies, our ports. Can you imagine selling the ports where our navies must operate from? What madness! What treason! But they are just not selling these vital infrastructures which at first think, but otherwise they would target at any time of war. They are selling our land, our homes, our hopes, and our children's dreams. They are selling education to students and other internationals, but it has nothing to do with utilising education as a service industry. This is about selling permanent residency. The permanent residency then creates the glut of real estate. Take a look at every major city in Australia, and they've been transformed to resemble Hong Kong. These hideous apartment blocks going up in
He can't help barking, it's just his breed.
He just wants to be unleashed on Antifa, doesn't he? He can smell them.
European Australians, you're dreaming. You couldn't afford them. No, they're here for these Chinese students coming here. These are for those who soon you will be working for.
He's barking at yelling at racist dogs.
Your masters. Those students who are now taking over the universities.
She's covering all the bases pretty well.
When you work in
Yeah, it was a good speech. It was a very good
the
speech.
nation's
I've
brain.
got to give it to her.
When you work in engineering, you are a
And the
stone's
great thing
throw
about the
from
rally
working
was that, or the
without
protest, was that only a couple of us were members, so to speak. Most of the people that came weren't even members of the party, for example, and a lot of them were actually locals. Like there were about 4 people who heard of the protest who actually lived in Box Hill. So just local Aussies who were very ashamed of the fact that their suburb was being taken over by Chinese.
Yeah, great.
So it was good that, you know, just random people came helped us out, not just actual ideological, you know, people.
And that's because our leaders are softening us up for a takeover.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just let this finish now.
Orientation and appeasement. This is about changing the layout of the store to reflect its new management. We don't come here simply to protest one flag and a small contingent of representatives of a foreign power.
Did you get footage of Antifa?
I wasn't actually filming, so someone was filming, but I should have, but I didn't. But there are photos of them online. If you go on the pages, you'll find the photos.
The policy remains well intact. This is a police force preparing
Can't
to
wave a
defend
flag
the
and hold it all game
interests
film.
of a foreign
It's too
power
much.
while calling them part of our community. They are not our community. Australia is not China. Victoria is not Beijing. And we will not be lied to. We will not have our own police serving a foreign power in its bid to take us over by stealth. Not on our watch. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Good work.
So that was a pretty fiery and I'd say passionate speech. Well, to me, because I'm going to put my civic hat on, it's not the fact that this is a multi-ethnic area, it's the fact that the Chinese Communist Party that rules China has followed these people to their new nation and is still influencing them and therefore that geographical area.
I think you're being too kind. I
Well,
think
it's- I was just going to say it sort of links to what we were talking about before about, you know, when the Californians, you know, screw up California and leave it and then start voting in other states to make other states into California 2.0 and change the nature of the new place they've gone to. You know, it's a similar phenomenon that people are anticipating here, you know, happening from China, is that if more and more Chinese people end up owning land in Australia, end up bringing their voting, you know, become citizens, bring their voting position, and, you know, when you see the communist flag going up above a police station, that's a pretty big symbol of, if not fealty, but affiliation at least to a country that has, you know, government policies that are very, very different and incompatible with ours. Now, I actually don't have any problem with what China does in China. You know, I think China's doing a great job in China for the Chinese. But
freedom for the Hong Kong people.
No, I don't care. China can do China. But is it okay for China to do China in Australia? That's a very different question.
Do you know which federal seat Box Hill takes in?
What's that?
Box Hill.
Oh, yes, it's Chisholm.
Yeah,
yes.
Chisholm.
Well, yeah, that's the point.
Yes,
yeah.
and Gladys Liu was cutting the cake on the day for the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China, even though she'd been pilloried for a month for being a suspected CCP agent. She still cut the cake.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. Like, it's not that you know, these people can't get away from China. Of course, China comes with them. You import the third world, you get the third world. You import the Chinese, you get China.
Yeah, exactly right, David. And the point I was going to make is that, from my understanding, it's 35% Chinese in Box Hill. And I was thinking about this, and it basically, there's a crude arithmetic here. I call it crude arithmetic. With numbers comes power. That's the fact. And 5-10 years ago, it wouldn't have happened. 20 years ago, wouldn't have happened. But the seeds were sown 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago when they started migrating. And if they're raising flags in 2019, imagine what's going to be happening from here on in. And I foresee a time in the future where there will be parties formed, as in, remember the Muslim party that happened? It didn't really happen that well.
It was a non-party.
Yeah, it went nowhere, but still, the Muslims are different, okay? The Chinese are more organized. They're more sort of patriotic, so to speak, because Muslims, you know, you got Lebanese, you got, you know, different types of Muslims, but with the Chinese, you got an ethnicity, and they're all relatively united, so to speak. And they'll eventually start forming their own parties. And not just forming their own party, like actual Chinese parties, but also just, you know, infiltrating the major parties as well, and you know, controlling things from within, so to speak. So we need to be very careful. And I've said it many times: Islam is Islam. We all know what's happening there, but the yellow dragon, the red dragon, it's going to engulf us all. And people really need to start taking it seriously, because at the end of the day, demographics is destiny. And if you think that this is going to stop, it's not going to stop. It's going to get worse and worse, and you're going to be living in a country where your kids are going to start learning how to sing the Chinese national anthem and to like worship Mao. I'm serious. It's happening already. There are 20 schools in Sydney who are funded by the Chinese consulate, the Chinese embassy or whatever, and that embassy basically has programs in those schools. And I've seen videos, footage of Australian school children singing the Chinese national anthem. That is 20 schools in Sydney. As things get worse and their power grows here in Australia with their numbers and their influence, more and more schools will do that. Okay, more universities. There was a Four Corners report just yesterday. I watched it yesterday night actually. And if you just Google Four Corners, it's called Red Flags.
Yes.
It's all about the Chinese influence in Australian universities and how they're sort of stealing people's information and getting grants. The university is giving grants to Chinese researchers to develop weapons and shit against us. It's crazy. Have a look at it.
Yeah, China is absolutely the next rising empire, and it's begun its colonization program of the whole world, but it's just doing it a very, very different way to what the British did. You know, as the last major global empire, they're doing it much more covertly. much more commercially, much more by mutual agreement with governments and various corporations, and it's it's just a much more slow, steady, patient approach, but it's still ultimately a colonization. So it will change. It is changing the demographics. It will ultimately change the law and the culture of the land, and so we need to be honest about it and careful about it if we go in that direction.
Yeah,
Well,
and I've seen. Go ahead, David. Sorry.
I was just on that. It's really silly to refer to the Chinese as a minority as well, because all up there's 1.3 billion of them. Like
Yeah. It's a big group.
Yeah.
Big group.
Yeah.
James, can you move closer to your microphone because our pair of headphones are clashing? Yeah, that's better. Stephanos, you're not drinking milk. You're drinking a...
I'm having a Corona. It's a Mexican beer. So
Mexican?
Yeah, Mexican, yeah.
Timmy's just...
Corona is my favorite. I have to admit, Corona is my favorite beer.
That's cultural appropriation, dude.
Oh well. Damn it.
You hypocrite. Wow.
Now, we've got still a whole bunch of other topics to discuss. Dave.
No, I was going to say, James, this would be an interesting time to tie in your Twitter discussions that you've had.
Oh yeah. It's just, I think it's a good point, and I guess it was a tweet that I saw today that was directed at Stefan Molyneux, who's
I'll bring it up.
poking a lot of lion's dens. Yeah, bring it up. And it was a discussion between Stefan and Hazel Chu, who is a recently elected local representative in Ireland. Now, Hazel Chu, not the most Irish name. She's an Irish-born Chinese lady. Her parents are both from China, and she was born in Ireland, to give a bit of context. And she wrote to, not to me, but this was written at, it was retweeting Stefan Molyneux, and she wrote, "Stop using the tricolour when you're spouting hate online against people who look different, or when you roll out lies like mass immigration. You are a small minority that don't represent the good, decent, caring Irish people that I'm proud to be one of. Have a good day." And my response was, "You're not Irish, Hazel. I am. If I move to China, I do not become Chinese. Even if I'm born there, even if 6 generations of my family are born in China, unless we breed with Chinese partners, my descendants are still not Chinese. The Irish are a people. It's in the blood." And this is the distinction that I guess we're trying to make here, that is being vehemently rejected by the mainstream narrative, by academia, by what's being taught in schools, by the whole leftist, globalist melting pot, all humans are equal narrative, which is just total lies and nonsense. But Hazel is claiming that just because she was born on Irish soil, and of course she's been she's grown up in the Irish culture. She probably has a fine Irish accent. She's been educated in Ireland, so absolutely she's adopted the Irish culture. But that does not make her an Irish woman, because a nation is more than just a culture, and a nation is more than just the geographical boundaries in which it resides. A nation is a family, an extended family, and it's in the genes, it's in the people, it's in the actual history that our genes share with our common ancestors across time. And of course, it's an infinitely complex fractal equation when you begin to branch out across time. Not all Irish people are extremely closely related, but I'm much more closely related to the people of Ireland. Mm-hmm. Even though I've never been to Ireland and I was born in Australia, I'm not an Australian. I'm an Australian-born Irishman, because the bulk of my genes and the bulk of my family history, my ancestry, is in Ireland. And this is a distinction that is rejected by the whole modern current narrative. It's considered an obscene thing to say, but it seems plainly obvious to me, and it's a fact. But what she's saying is that I'm an Irish woman because magic dirt, because I was born on Irish soil, I'm an Irish woman. And I think, that's not to say that Hazel Chu, she has an Irish partner, and they have a child together. And I'm very happy to, to call a spade, her child is half Irish, half Chinese. And growing up in Ireland, they're Irish citizens, sure, legally they're Irish, all of that. But her child being half Irish does not make her Irish. And what this comes back to is this idea of transnationalism, which I think was the precursor to transgenderism. A long time ago, we accepted the idea that you can be transnational just by identifying as being part of a nation because you grew up around them or because you like their culture and you moved there. You may not even have the local accent, but if you move there and adopt the culture, you're now an Australian. New Australians who have thick Chinese or American or Indian accents, but they consider themselves to be Australians. They're not. Doesn't mean they're not welcome. That's a whole other conversation. But I wish people could speak more truthfully and rationally about what a nation really is. And a nation is about from what line were you born.
I love the fact that
thing, James, is that I consider you an Australian, but you're also Irish as well. Like I don't see the conflict there. I think that the very fact that you are Irish makes you an Australian. You know what I mean? being a European brotherhood and all.
I'm a European, and we have that in common. And Australia is a tricky one because it's such a young nation. But whereas in much more clear cut. The real Americans in America are the posterity of the founding fathers, and that's made extremely clear in the founding document of that country. It's not the immigrants. It's not a nation of immigrants. It's
the Irish have been
children
here
of the
since
founders.
colonisation, mate. That's the thing. The Irish have been here for a very long time. So that's why I think you are Dinky Die as well. You're both Irish and Australian.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but I don't know if I agree. It's a tricky one with Australia because we don't have such a clear-cut definition as a country like America has. I'm the first person in my whole family history to be born in Australia. Not the first person, but the first generation. My sister and I, first of our line to be born here. My parents, both from Irish stock, were born in England. That didn't make them. It made them English citizens, but they're of Irish stock. So I don't have beyond my life. There's really no history in Australia to speak of for my particular family. I've got lots of Irish cousins here whose families have been here from way back, from the foundation.
Can I ask a question? I was actually thinking about this as well recently, believe it or not. Everything you just said, because my parents came here only 20, 30 years ago. So I'm in the same situation as you. But the thing is, I was wondering, do you think that in maybe 100 or 200 years' time, your grandkids, so to speak, they would be Australian technically, based on your own sort of conception, your current sort of definition of what it means to be Australian? There has to be a bit of a time spent here in Australia historically. So would you say that your grandkids maybe would be more Australian than you at least, and more Australian in essence? Do you think?
Yeah, well, I guess over time, you become your genes sort of will spread into the pool because we often think of our descendants and my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, my great we just think of that straight line from me to the great grandkids, but we're not considering that across all of those generations there's been interbreeding, and there are probably hopefully thousands of descendants a few generations down the line who aren't all from my Irish family. They're also from other Australian families who've bred, and the genes have now dissipated into the nation. So there's been time for my genes to become a contributing factor to the Australian gene pool, which they're simply not now. My genes, the contribution of my genes to the Australian gene pool, it resides in my two children, right? That's not a significant contribution to the Australian gene pool, but give it another 100, 200 years, it may well be. So I think nations are always changing over time. There's no hard and fast nations, and the geographic lines that define our nation states are constantly changing. So and this is not to say that Hazel Chu herself currently, she's a Chinese woman, but that's not to say that her half Irish grandchild is not going to produce children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren who are authentically, legitimately Irish people, because their genes are in the pool. You know what I mean?
Yep, that makes sense to me. I was going to say, like, I was thinking about this very topic, like, just a couple of days ago, and I've come to the conclusion that I I'm Australian, but I kind of feel like I'm a second tier Australian. Like someone like David and Tim, you guys probably have grandparents who fought in the wars and stuff. So I would consider you as like tier one Australians, like people who have more of a root in Australia, racially and genealogically. I've only been here for 26 years. Now, obviously, I love the culture. I support Australia Day. I go to the Dawn service and that day, and I'm Australian. But I do kind of, in the back of my mind, I don't feel that I'm on the same level as someone like David, for example. He's more tier one. I'm tier two. But at the same time, there are so many tier one Australians, so to speak, people who have got, people who've been here for 100 years, who are lefties, who burn the Australian flag. So I would definitely consider myself higher than them, though, if you know what I mean. So
Well, this
tier
is
one
where
doesn't
we're
necessarily,
separating.
yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean just having a long ancestry here. It also entails what you believe as well. And there are plenty of lefties who have been here for quite a while who hate Australia. So
You see, this is the thing, is that Australian is only becoming a nationality now. The country's only existed for a very short time in the scheme of history, whereas, the Irish people have been around a lot longer. The Greek people have been around a very, very long time. And so Australia is now really just taking root as a nation. It's a country, and it's a country that's made up of people who've come from Europe, predominantly British. But as a nation of its own, where people are actually born going, no, I'm not British, I'm not European, I'm Australian, right? And they're people whose families have been here for a long time. That's sort of it's only ripe for that to exist now after a fair bit of establishment of the country, if you know what I mean, for it to become a new nation.
I think Aussies considered themselves to be Australian when we federated. One of the reasons why we federated, we were worried of basically British commercial interests wanting to bring in foreign labour. They were very. We were
Funny
very.
that.
And British. We were very clear on who we were. I think if the borders hadn't been open to like the third world in the 1970s, a lot of the discussions that we're having now wouldn't have been that big a deal. It's like, okay, maybe we've got a broader stock of Europeans here, but at the end of the day, we're still going to be European.
And this is the thing, is we're just beginning, we're just in the burgeoning of our identity as a nation. And I say our because I'm here, and I am part of it. But I'm only at the beginning of my family's journey in Australia. But we're at the beginning of that formation of a national identity, which involves a gene pool. And it's now being really seriously disrupted by this importation of all of these other cultures and gene pools and ideas.
What I really love about the discussion that I've just been listening to you two guys, you're really open and honest about what this all means. I often think the difference between a civic nationalist and an ethnic nationalist is that an ethnic nationalist doesn't let their personal situation get in the way of logic and go, okay, this is what a nation actually is. I think a lot of civic nationalists can let their own personal situation get in the way of it.
But there's a lot of civic
to me, I see it as a
nationalists
defensive kind of thing.
who it's not purely motivated by their own situation. So you're talking about, for example, a nationalist who has an Asian wife.
Yes.
Yeah, well, Dusty was on doing Thirsty Thursday before he came on. He's a civic nationalist, and he has a blonde-haired, blue-eyed wife, but he's still a civic nationalist. So
that doesn't discount my argument. I think a lot of civic nationalists do let their personal situation get in the way of coming to the right conclusions.
Perhaps, but I don't think that.
I'm not saying all.
I'm still saying that civic nationalism, it's still a well-reasoned philosophy that obviously
it's wrong.
Yes, which you disagree with.
Yes. I don't know that it is well-reasoned. I think it's well-intentioned, and that's something. And it's certainly a better position than a lot of others. But I don't know that it's correct, because it's a misuse of, again, this is the conflation of terms. Nationalism, your nation means it comes from the same word as the nativity. Where you were born, from what people were you born? Your nativity, right? So, and that has a lot more to do with your genes and genetics than the soil that you were born onto, or the legal system into which you were born. Look and take the nativity, right? Jesus, we don't think of him as a Roman, right? Do we? Even though that whole part of the world was under Roman occupation at the time, and he probably could have gotten Roman citizenship, I suppose, right? But we think of him as a Jew because he was born into that line, right? That line of people.
People were wondering, I think, for a moment, what you were doing, flashing your chest there, Stefanos. There's
that was from Melissa, mate. That was from Melissa.
Showing us just how Greek you are.
There's a lady in the chat who's caught your eye. So, you were obviously watching at the beginning of the show. So we had James's chest hair, and then on the weekend had my chest hair. So
that was a shirts off show before long.
But that was the poll that I did last night when people were saying I should have a wax. Maybe I should ask it again tonight. How should a man be? You can still talk while I'm doing the poll.
And if we're talking ancient history, like when all the Franks migrated and conquered Gaul, they didn't become Gauls. Like the name of Gaul changed to France.
Yeah. And this has been the common view of what nationalism is for all of human history, up until the last 100 years, where it's been gradually changed through a system of propaganda that's been teaching us to believe in this magic dirt bullshit and this civic nationalism bullshit. Which is it's not correct. It's just not correct. The nation is the people. It's just a misuse of the word nationalism.
James,
nationalism is your race.
Yep.
Sorry, Stefanos.
Can I put something to you? This is really interesting, man. This is really interesting. I want to ask you a question, mate, and this is for everyone as well, but especially for James. So, in Australia, there was an organisation back in the day. I have made some videos about this in the past, and if you're interested, just Google it. It was called the Australian Natives Association. So have a Google of Australian Natives Association when you get a chance.
Okay.
And basically, they were promoting White Australia policy, and they support the Federation. And that's why they were created, to support Federation, the White Australia policy. And basically, you could join if you were born in Australia. And that was the prerequisite.
Well, it says white.
And you had to be white, basically. And I agree with that. But the thing is, because I agree that a native is someone who's born on the soil, but which you said is not necessarily true. And I kind of agree with you, because if a Muslim's born in Australia, or a black person like Kwaku, for example, I wouldn't consider them Australian, even if they are born here. You know what I mean? So I think that nativism is dependent on race as well. It's you have to be born here, but it also depends on your race as well. I think you need to have a combination of those two things.
And again, it's like Australia is a tricky one. It's a really tricky one, because we're a new country here that was founded by colonization. Although Aboriginals didn't consider themselves Australians, because Australia as a whole idea didn't exist until Europeans got here, the natives of this land are the indigenous people, right? And we came in, we conquered, we took over, we made it our own. And so we've declared ourselves to be a new
Well, there was
nation
no Australia before. It was a collection of different tribes who had their own land and fought against each other.
Yes, but they were the natives of the various regions that they occupied. Yeah.
But it wasn't
we're natives of Europe. That's where our longest period of history and development has been.
And descendants of the builders of Australia as well.
Who's that? Sorry.
We are the descendants of the builders of Australia. Well,
at least,
me and Dave are.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Great. So I mean, and I agree with Stefanos there that based on that that level of tenure of your families in Australia, I consider you guys to be higher tier Australians than me, and it's been an awakening over the last couple of years. But I tend to think of myself less as an Australian national. I am an Australian citizen. And I do love this country, and I love all the opportunities it's afforded me, and I would like this country to be a great place for my family to continue to grow. But, my heritage is in the British Isles, and mostly in Ireland in particular. And so, I'm not as much Australian as you guys are, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just reality.
I'm going to end this now because we've still got current news and we've also got a super chat to read out, because unless I take back control, you're just going to be talking about this forever.
Yeah, that was a
we're
juicy rabbit hole.
Yeah. So
Enjoyed that.
Radical Islamophobe has sent through $14.88 US. So does that work out to be $17.88 Australian dollars?
I think we did the maths, but the currency equation was probably different when we did the maths. But we appreciate it.
Every day.
Yeah. So they say thank you for that quite precise amount. Since we are all now white supreme pizza terrorists, I might as well share my anti-Semitic shekels before I'm desheckled by my bank. Yes. Can you still all use your bank cards at the moment? It wasn't declined because you're a fascist?
I can still use mine. What I love is that I actually closed my ANZ account a few months ago when the ANZ went after Israel Folau's wife.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually just went in and closed it.
Because first it was back in June, Blair Cottrell was informed that Westpac would be closing his account for, was it commercial reasons?
Commercial reasons, yes.
And then Thomas Brescher, who's a former Lad Society member, ANZ, informed him that they were closing his bank account due to some clause in their service which says if we don't think you're using it appropriately, we have the authority to shut it down and give you no reason. And it turns out now that ANZ Bank, they've sent a whole bunch of letters to either patriot activists, people associated with the nationalist movement, or even like family members saying we're shutting your account down, we're not going to tell you why, go away, we never want to do business with you again. So I did a monologue on my Wilms Front program about this last night. I've uploaded that segment to the Unshackled main channel, where I basically just go through how this is progressed, because like getting kicked off Facebook and Twitter and even like YouTube, like you still have
for you.
You still have your everyday. That's the online world, where if you're going down to buy groceries, for example, and your card declines, sorry, your card is invalid because of wrongthink.
Yeah, well, I got a letter as well, actually.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, well, what the thing is, I called Commonwealth Bank a couple of times, and I asked to speak to someone who speaks English, because I kept on talking to people who couldn't speak English, and they weren't doing their job properly. Like, I had very good reasons for them to speak English, and kept asking for someone to speak English, and they got offended by that. And
it's the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, and English is our national language here, so it's not an unfair request.
They made a couple. When I first spoke to them, they made a couple of mistakes because they didn't understand what I was saying, and I couldn't understand them. So I just asked for someone to teach my language, and I kept calling and asking, and I complained and stuff, and it got to a point where I became a bit of a hassle to them because of the complaints I was making, and they basically said, they said commercial decision.
Oh,
they didn't mention that, but they said commercial decision to close your bank account.
They closed you down over it. Wow.
Yeah, not that I'm actually quite glad, because Combank was very left wing, and they were in the media like 6 months later for the Royal Commission. So I'm actually glad they kind of got rid of me, because I don't want to be part of it anyway.
The way to get around that English issue, though, I've discovered over the years, is to just ask for the sales team. Just go straight to sales, and then hit them with your problems, because the sales department is always excellent English speakers.
But that's using the politically correct language.
What's that?
Yeah.
Using the politically correct term to not cause offence.
Yeah,
at least you found a way to work with the system, huh?
But mate, the threshold for what's considered racist is so low. I mean, I didn't even say anything racist. Like, I would never abuse someone racially on the phone. I just
How dare
asked
you not
for
understand someone?
language. Yeah, and that was apparently, they got offended by that, which is ridiculous.
We've got a question here. Your poll is rigged. A man can't be hairless, but you don't want to get your fingers tangled in back fur either. You wanted us to say hairy, didn't you? Well, it's actually like most men are hairy on the front, not on the back. Because it's been 100% hairy, the poll result. But,
Depends on where you're traveling, I guess, Tim.
But you know that this is only happening to patriots and nationalists, because if it was happening to Antifa, Marxist, communists, or Extinction Rebellion, there'd be massive outrage. There'd be ABC stories about it at this threat to free speech. But because it's only happening to the white working class, then who cares? But the thing is, the government is now banning cash transactions, or intending to, over 10,000. So if you're not allowed to use banks, the only option is to, well, unless you use cryptocurrency, is to use cash, but that'll be illegal anyway. And I said this last night, they basically just want you to be just destitute and basically beat you to a pulp.
Oh, it's all moving towards the mark of the beast, you know, where you're just at the absolute mercy. All of your movements, all of your actions, all of your transactions are managed by a central government. That's where it will head, you know, unless we turn it around. That's where it has to go, because the power that they have gives them an insatiable hunger for more and more and more power, and it ends in absolute Orwellian totalitarianism. But, you know, there'll be war before it gets there.
Don't forget that the Reserve Bank of Australia, they're pumping more paper money into the economy as well, which we all know, if you know your Australian economics, that goes to the big banks first. So even if you've still got actual money in your hand, that'll decrease in value, aka be secretly stolen from you.
Yes, taxation is theft. Inflation is also theft.
Yes,
The
but
hidden
a
tax, and
lot
it's the one that kills us.
Yeah, a lot of libertarians, they forget about the other theft. They say taxation is theft, but not inflation.
And inflation is a far worse theft and threat than taxation, because it's covert and because most people have no idea it's happening to them. They're just wondering why year by year they're losing purchasing power. You know, like what happened? Like, why is it so hard for our generation to purchase a property? Why was it so easy for our grandparents to do it? It's because of inflation. You know, that they're stealing the money from us by removing our purchasing power one drip at a time. And it's not always in drips though. Sometimes it comes in massive waves, and that's when you get major depressions.
Well, yeah, David Hilton is actually predicting he's going to a GFC 2 in January 2020. I'll be interested to see his analysis. He reckons it's going to be pretty soon.
We've got a question.
I think we're due for a major depression not long after that as well. Like, you know, worse than the last one, the Great Depression scale. You know.
We've got a question here from somebody who says they're Peter Grace. Who says, Tim, why do you say I wear my pants childish and fake news?
It's because you wear your pants.
Well, that's just a story that has been floating around online.
This guy really doesn't know how to contain a story, does he?
But there was
his bladder, for that matter.
Is it true that was he at the march this year or just last year?
Well, Logan Spalding at the march last year, he did a vlog with Dia where he said that he saw Peter Grace, and I think Dia said that she saw him too, but it was definitely Logan. That there's probably like lots of old people that look like that. Because
is it true? Like, I heard that he actually had to be he had a bit of a moment, because from what I understand, Peter Grace's condition, it's a little bit like hemophilia, but like for your bladder. So once it stops, you just can't turn that tap off. So, it started and they had to bring the ambulance and had to take him away.
Well, there was footage from his stand-up comedy career that was released on the Senator Slayer
channel. He openly
channel.
says that
he said, I wet the bed and I'm awake when I do it. So those are his words.
Yeah.
But, you know.
You guys are so mean. He just wants friends. He just needs some friends.
Well, Dia offered to be his friend. Dia offered to be his friend, and he didn't want it.
Well, yeah, it doesn't mean he knows how to make friends. He wants them, but he just pushes them away.
So I don't know if that's the actual Peter Grace, because Peter Grace's YouTube channel was shut down in 2017 by for bullying and harassment by David Clarkson.
I got a feeling you're gonna cop some for this commentary, Tim, in the week ahead.
He's saying he's gonna get a golden shower from.
Well, it was a person called Peter Grace asking, so it's in Entropy. Though good on if that person who claims to be Peter Grace. Good on you for at least asking.
It looks like, Back to the Future. What's that doctor's name?
Yeah, he looks like him.
Emmett Brown.
Yeah, Emmett.
Stop. Great piss.
But talking about the other golden showerers of the West at the moment, Extinction Rebellion. Well, they're just using their
good segue.
Their
Best
bodies.
segue ever on the Uncuckables. Yeah.
Well, they actually, because it was the end of Rebellion Week last weekend, and you had the rally at Box Hill. There was the March for the Babies in Melbourne. On the Saturday morning up in Carlton, there was a nudie run for Extinction Rebellion. But even though it was called a nudie run, it was just down to their underwear. But that's still quite a
weak.
Yes. But
God, they're obsessed with getting their bits out, aren't they?
Yeah. Remember how the outrage of last week was Kerry-Ann Kenley saying leave them super glued to the road, just put witches around, use them as speed bumps. Well, she has actually incited violence over in the UK in London. In the suburb of Canning Town, because one of these Extinction Rebellion protesters decided to make a statement upon a morning train while everyone was getting to work, and this is what happened.
They're dragging him off. Oh!
Now that's what I call social justice. Yes! Power to the people!
He's being diversity mobs too.
Yeah, so there are some blacks in the crowd, that's for sure.
They just want to fucking ride the train, guys.
Well, diversity's great, look at that.
So that is actually, Canning Town is a working class area of London, and you saw that Extinction Rebellion, he was in a nice suit there. So that shows you that this is driven by the elites and the working class, and also
their children,
and the farmers are just getting pissed off with these rich brats, believing that what they're doing is saving the planet. In fact, they're destroying it.
You've got to look at the racial.
The folks that make people work, and feed these brats, losing patience, and this is where, if they can build up their socialist state enough, that's usually when a Holodomor begins, and they start killing off farmers, because they are the true voice of the people who feed us. Don't mess with the food chain.
You've got to look at the racial aspect of that video. Like that's just that's the awkward moment when the white middle class socialist forgets that black and coloured working class aren't as cut as white working class. And will actually do something about it.
It was a multicultural working class crowd.
Because I guarantee you, if that was a white working class crowd there, that would not have happened.
We've got another super chat from Radical Islamophobe for $14.88. Here are some shekels towards Peter Grace's colostomy bag. Well, isn't colostomy for like bowel movements?
Oh, it's in the same area.
I guess that's breaking news.
Close enough.
Yeah. I don't know.
I love this guy already, man. Just by his name, I just love the guy.
So we've got a question from Ethnic76, another one. Do you know 1 week was the minimum time they intended to act globally for Spring-Autumn Rebellion? They intend to go on for as long as they can. Well, we'll see how patient because Australian people were very well behaved during the week, even though they were held up during peak hour. The protesters said, "Oh, we have let through ambulances and disabled people now. We've made that. Oh, that's nice of you. You learned not to make people die." But at least we're not hearing about Greta anymore. Her 15 minutes seems to be up.
She'll come back. She's been going through the Midwest. She was actually given an honorary Ooga Booga name by a native tribe out in Wisconsin or something like that. I can't remember what the name they called her was, but it translated to something like golden one from across the seas or something like that. It's crazy.
She lost the Nobel Prize to the Ethiopian Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed.
Yeah, I made the point that they didn't, the Nobel committee didn't want to actually give it to Greta because they didn't want people to start thinking that they actually do take climate change seriously. Climate change is all about basically just wealth transfer from the first world to the third. But they didn't want the Greta people to complain too much about it, so they gave it to a black guy. So they basically just played the race card.
Yeah. We've got, what is that? Another question from Peter Grace. Do you know how harmful bullying can be to somebody? Shame picking on an old man. How dare you? Well, you've picked on nice-natured young men such as Logan Spalding and Johnny Moore.
I said, how dare you?
So I don't think that's very nice behaviour. Just good-natured young men who just want to have their say and do the right thing by their country. So that's my response.
And just a reminder. He came in and brought up his urinary habits. We didn't bring that up tonight. He brought it up. Well,
somebody who said they're Peter Grace.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough. Yes. Yeah. Well, apologies to the real Peter Grace, of course.
Well, because he's banned from YouTube.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I'm still waiting for him to do, because it's been a while since he's mentioned me. Not that I like the attention or anything, but my Facebook page recently got unzucked just 2 days ago. And I'm surprised no lefties have actually mentioned that, because I thought they'd be mass reporting it by now. But, it's weird. I guess it'll be a matter of time, by the time it gets shut down again.
I think Peter's been quite generous towards me. He's just been promoting rationarise.tv for us, and he's renamed it Spudflix. I think that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
We could roll with that. And, and I think he called me a god botherer and a one-man evangelical band.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah. I reckon if you launched a rocket to out of space, he'd just call it the Spud rocket. Even if you achieved something great, really great like that, he'd call it Spud something.
I wonder if he's an Irish cousin of mine. He's obviously pretty obsessed with potatoes.
What else have we got here? Oh yes, remember the convicted Antifa murderer Jock Palfreeman? He was granted parole in Bulgaria after he stabbed a young law student. What's with the Kit Kats? Is that?
I brought a dog. He brought a cat. Right.
Sorry.
Ah. Yeah, going back to yes. Yeah. So Jock Palfreeman, he in December 2007 claimed that he saw a group of Bulgarian youths attacking two Roma men, which are the gypsies in Eastern Europe, and so he got his butterfly knife out and he stabbed two of the youths. He voluntarily decided to get involved in this dispute, which he knew nothing about, and so he stabbed two of them and fatally stabbed one of them in the back. So
In the back.
yes,
Yeah.
the
Yeah. In self-defense in the back. Yeah.
it's gone to the prosecutor general or chief prosecutor, whatever it is in Bulgaria, has appealed to the Supreme Court, and they're currently deliberating on their verdict, whether he'll have parole or not. But he's now been released from immigration detention, but they won't give him back his passport, so he's free in Bulgaria now, and he's given an interview to their guess who?
Nice. Their ABC.
Yes. Now, it was by their Europe correspondent, Linton Bessie. And, hey, guess which our favourite ABC personality decided to promote it, Alex Manlett. This is really an incredible interview with LB Online. From the devastating lows of a decade in prison, oh, poor Diddums for stabbing a guy, to an hilarious burn of his mates back at home. Should I have carried a knife as he fights for freedom? Jock Pell Freeman has no regrets, because he said he was carrying the knife because Nazis had killed Roma people in the weeks preceding that. I haven't seen any evidence that was happening in towards the end of 2007.
So wait, it's quite clear
just
that he's
slapped
not
a Nazi label on it, and he's an instant hero, right?
Yeah.
In the left's eyes.
and it's quite clear that he's not a Roma. So he wasn't carrying the knife for his own self-protection. He's saying that he was carrying the knife in case he saw Bulgarians attacking Roma again.
Nazis.
So-
Nazi Bulgarians.
Which would imply that like the murder was actually premeditated.
Yes, that's why he said that. He initially said that he carried it for his own protection, but in that interview he said, no, I did it because I heard of Nazi Bulgarians attacking Roma gypsies.
Yes. So he was out there with the intention of seeing if there were so-called Nazi Bulgarians attacking Roma gypsies, so that he could attack the Bulgarians.
Knife them.
Yes,
And
in the back.
yes, and security footage was released recently, which said he believes that vindicates him. All it shows is a bunch of guys running down the road. There's no actual physical attack. There's a bit of pushing and shoving. That's like the worst that you see.
Yeah.
And obviously that ended up with a knife in the back. And he says that his case is exposing the fascist, corrupt government in Bulgaria. He used the word fascist to describe it because it's a centre-right party in coalition with the Nationalist Party.
It's got to be said, this guy's an Antifa member as well, yes? Or
Well, he's
associated
he's
with
an
Antifa.
anarchist. He's an anarchist.
Yeah, so he considers anybody to the right of Malcolm Turnbull to
And
be a
he
fascist.
claims that if he goes back to prison, that they'll plant drugs on him to convict him on something else. Well, why haven't they done that for the past 11 years that he's been in jail? Like, why'd they let
And
him
if
to
they're
get
such
parole in the first place?
fascists, why they allow them to speak against them in their own country? You know, like fascist governments don't let you do an interview within the jurisdiction of their own government speaking against the party, do they? You
And-
wouldn't get away with that in China,
Yeah.
which
And-
is a fascist
And Alex
country,
Mann
essentially.
referenced the burn of his Sydney mates, and what he was saying in the interview is like, oh, like I won't. I'll just be in the same situation as my friends back in Sydney because none of them are married or own their own homes. They don't have jobs in what they studied at university, so we're all in the same boat. And then he like lets out this this like evil laugh, and like it's really chilling if you watch it. And so he's
That's as evil as Tim can do. Bless his
yes,
heart.
but it is like this guy's a murderer, and so we hear a murderer just sort of laugh. Oh, I'm just gonna go back and with my mates. So that's he might be back
You should
on
get
the
him on for an
Australian.
interview.
Ask him if he's carrying a knife.
Well, he
You've got a metal
could
detector at the studio, right?
he could potentially be walking the streets of Sydney. There's been free jock demonstrations by Antifa in Melbourne and Sydney. Slack Bastard is leading the campaign to free him.
But don't worry, like if he does get released onto the streets of Sydney, at least we have those milk crates. We'll be safe.
Milk crates.
yeah. But
God bless the milk
The
crates.
Antifa in Australia, they've leapt on that because England played Bulgaria
Yeah.
in the soccer.
Those Bulgarian fans are pretty based. Yeah.
Well, they were giving out Nazi salutes and hurling slurs at the black English players, and the game had to be stopped, and the Bulgarian
I love it that
football
they actually,
chief has to be...
I love the fact they actually had to stop the game because of what the Bulgarian fans were doing. That's amazing.
Yeah, so the chief of Bulgarian
we're a lot
football
softer
has
in
resigned.
Australia, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah.
We're a lot softer in AFL.
Those Bulgarians need some behavioural awareness officers.
But do you know what
and some
Bulgaria...
documentary films to make us feel guilty.
Do you
Yeah,
know what
that's it.
Bulgaria
That's
used
it.
to be?
Part of the Ottoman Empire.
Oh, well-
i.e., they have a living memory of like being overrun by the Muslims.
Well, after World War II.
And then there were communist stuff. to that,
Yeah, so if oppression by godless, cultureless overlords,
Yeah.
like that's the reaction it breeds, and
Yeah.
it's happening in Hungary,
Their
in
tolerance
Poland.
is pretty low.
yeah.
Their tolerance is pretty low, and, this,
And they've
we're
got a high
seeing-
bullshit meter.
Seeing this, you see this from Russia to people who have survived communist decay. People, when I say people, I mean a nation. A people, and peoples who have survived, Muslim occupation at various parts of the world as well. They have extremely low tolerance when they survive that, and they put themselves back together. And the least tolerant always wins.
We've got a super chat from. Do you want to read this out, Dave?
Yes, sure.
Or who's it from and the amount?
I know. So Peter V, another $14.88 Canadian dollars. Thank you very much, Peter V. So we're contractually obligated to read this out. I love it. Breaking news: Peter Grace does Greta in Golden Shower 69. Be gentle. He's got a UTI.
Oh dear Lord!
Yeah.
I reckon I'm out. I reckon that's a wrap. Thought this was a family show.
We've got
Mercy.
a question from Peter V as well. When's the David Hollis and Jock Palfreeman Australian reunion tour? Well, David Hollis is only a killer. He stabbed 7 people. One woman died in Sydney back in the early 90s, spent 17 months in a mental health facility, but it's clearly that the Antifa supporters, they're like their knives. And we've also got one from Peter Grace. Why do you attack heroes like David Hollis and Jock Palfreeman, Nazis? Well, sorry about that. How dare you?
How dare you? The obligatory how dare you? How dare we?
I still... I don't think that phrase has been ruined, how dare you? Have you ever watched the Catherine Tate show where the catchphrase was, how very dare you?
Oh.
What about the boomer phrase, how double dog dare you?
I haven't heard that one.
It's an Americanism. It might be an Owen Benjaminism.
So we've gone over 2 hours. We might stick the US and foreign policy thing. We've got a bit of short culture war stuff that we can talk about to wrap up. Or which would you prefer? I'd prefer just this culture war stuff rather than us opening a rabbit.
I like the culture war.
Yeah,
that's the fun stuff.
Yeah, but just touching upon US politics, that it looks like that Nancy Pelosi said, "How dare you" to Donald Trump, because this photo was tweeted out by Trump when he met congressional Democrats. There's Nancy Pelosi pointing the finger at Trump.
Is that because he called her a third-rate politician?
Yeah, third-rate politician. And what did...
Where's the lie?
I can't remember what Trump... He said Nancy's meltdown, or something Nancy's meltdown. Yeah. Can you... Because they're wanting the congressional Democrats and the neocon Republicans. They passed a resolution to keep U.S. troops in northern Syria to protect our greatest ally, the Kurds.
Oh man, it's simple stuff from my perspective. Just look after your own lawn. Look after your own lawn. If we're in foreign wars, we just shouldn't be there. Just get out, Get out. It doesn't matter if it's awkward to get out. You should never have been there in the first place. Just get out and tend your own lawns. And this global, let's heal the world by dropping bombs and installing freedom and democracy in the smoldering craters in which we've killed, hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians who have nothing to do with us in our daily lives. It's all part of the program to globalize, and it's got to stop. And Trump is so right to be pulling troops out anywhere he can and putting America first, and putting in. Libertarians will hate me. He's right to be playing the trade war game with China. He's right to be isolating America as much as he can, because America can stand on its own 2 feet, and a lot of these other countries, it doesn't matter. They never asked us to come and fix them or heal them, and it's not our business to do so.
Don't you think it's a bit hypocritical, though, when you say it's good that he's moving troops out of Syria, because that's basically giving a green light to Turkey to...
Well, you're a bit biased in this. You're Greek. You hate the Turks.
Of course I'm biased, man.
Yeah,
so...
How's it America's business?
Yeah.
How's it America's business?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're against intervention, not having American troops there is going to lead to Turkey invading, which is what you don't want anyway. I'd rather have American troops there than Turkish troops.
So people who have a local interest in it, the neighboring countries and the people there. I mean, this stuff goes back so long now as well, because a lot of these wars are wars that lead to wars that lead to wars that lead to wars. There's no fixing it with more war, and there's no fixing it by pulling the troops out either. But I just think, we've got to everyone back to their own corner would be a better move.
In a perfect world, but I'll tell you one thing. The Turkish foreign minister, I saw on the Greek news, he put a Facebook post or something with a map of Greater Turkey, and it had parts of Syria incorporated into Turkey, and also Cyprus, which is where I come from, my parents come from, and also parts of northern Greece. So I'm just saying, like, there's a lot more things you need to consider when it comes to this sort of stuff. Turkey is very aggressive. They've always been aggressive.
Oh, yeah.
My dad fought in a war against them. They invaded Cyprus back in 1974. Well, I know what these people are like, man, and all Greeks know about Turks. We've been fighting these people for over 1,000 years. We know what they're like, and we just think that any action which sort of gives them more power, as being Greek and stuff, I don't like that. That's why I'm a bit skeptical about America pulling out, because it's given a green light to Turkey to invade, basically.
We've got another super chat again from Radical Islamophobe, again for $14.88 US. I'm going to come clean. I'm the artist formerly known as Savtanik, which is a regular commenter on all our shows, but for some reason Boomertech doesn't allow me to log into Entropy under my previous artist name. Love you guys. We love you too. You've been very generous tonight.
Is that a $14.88 each across the night?
Across the night. Yeah. Well, we're still I've got this Entropy kitty sitting there. We haven't had a proper negotiation to how it's going to be. We'll save that for after.
I think we might need to threaten those Canadians with war if they're not going to cough up the money. The Entropy Canadians.
Oh no, they've given it's just sitting in a neutral account at the moment.
So they say. Never trust a Canuck.
Did you know that today is International Pronoun Day? Did you hear about that?
No.
Yes.
My pronouns are Your Highness, Your Eminence, Sir, and my Lord.
And your mum.
And I want to change my gender to a battleship. I think that would be pretty cool. I know attack helicopters are kind of cool, but I like the idea of being a battleship.
According to Summit News, which is Paul Joseph Watson's website, that Britain is adding to its public order offences transphobic hate crimes. They don't say hate violence, hate crimes, and that it can attract...
Well, hate is a crime in itself, isn't it?
It can attract... I believe prison sentences of, I didn't read it, it's not here, but 6 years in prison, public order violations.
Wow. It's only a matter of time before they actually go after the doctors themselves who actually do so-called sex change surgery, because have you noticed that you only have two options? Well, you really only have one option of a sex change. You can either change from male to female. You can't change, and you can change from female to male. What about the other 138 genders?
Or you just like cut and dye your hair and.
Surely, like, the state should be subsidizing people wanting to change to a
I think you're
battleship.
right, Dave. You know, the truth is, I need to come out. My penis identifies as a great white shark, and it's a travesty that the.
Oh, it's 6 months in
Someone's gotta
jail.
go to jail
It's
over
6 months in jail. Sorry, not 6 years. Maybe it will be 6 years in the future.
Give him time.
Yes.
Hashtag give me my gills.
But the fact that I got years and months confused, that just shows how how much that this hate. Well, it's called hate crime, but they basically mean hate speech, because now they want Piers Morgan. There's a petition to get him fired from Good Morning Britain because he had an aggressive interview with a transgender activist.
Gee, he's our guy. I love the transformation of Piers Morgan from cuck to just culture warrior. Good on him.
We've just had.
Yeah, well, you know, we'll see more of it. You know, more and more people will just reach that threshold. And you know, I guess you saw it. It's happened in all of these sort of movements at different levels. It happened in Gamergate. You know, where a lot of people held back a long time, and then the line was crossed. They reached their threshold, and they're like, "Fuck it, sorry, I'm part of the resistance now." And then they begin to investigate in earnest and change their positions because they're beginning to pay attention. People are only ideologues until they're not. It takes an awakening of some kind, and a lot of people who are currently positioned as our ideological enemies in the culture war will eventually be our allies, because it will begin to affect them, and their rational self-interest will kick in, and they'll wake up.
Did you see in the Guardian that apparently LGBT hate crimes have increased in Birmingham, because that's where the protests against the LGBT education have been happening, and
we need to educate harder.
But
I'm sure Extinction Rebellion probably give Birmingham a wide berth as well.
I'm surprised that it's still called Birmingham. It's got ham at the end of it. Of course, the people that live there, they're not allowed to eat ham, so maybe
Birmingham donkey.
Birmingham.
Birmingham, yeah, Birmingham.
Oh, Burkistan.
Yeah.
Which is because it's still trending that Islam is right about women. It's sort of moving on to the next one now.
Yes.
I look forward to the one about gays. Islam is right about gays. I want that to be a poster.
Well, that's what's happening.
That's what's
happening in Birmingham. Well, sort of.
And also the hashtag China is right about Islam.
Or you could say China is right about nationalism.
Yeah.
Now, guys, don't you know
China
that
is right
according
about
to
democracy.
ASIO's analysis of extreme far right, terrorism, you guys are engaging in terrorist communication here by proposing these memes to the internet.
Oh yes. Well, it said the ASIO report. It's not us, but somebody in the comments could be inspired. So I'm sure they've monitored.
So we all agree, of course, on the Uncuckables that anything we say is not intended as incitement or encouragement to go out and print out these memes and put them up. Of course, it's just parody. It's just comedy, folks. Just enjoy a good laugh with us. Do not print these memes out and put them up on the walls around your public areas.
We've got another question. I'll allow you to read this out, Dave.
Oh,
I'll let
me?
you speak.
Okay. This is from somebody claiming to be Peter Grace. Why did you send people to troll my page saying my pronoun is number one? How dare you?
I'm not aware of that happening. I think we've read out a number of Peter Grace's questions. So I think that if
I haven't
you,
heard that one before. That's great.
Yeah. I think you should send us through a super chat if you sort of want us to keep reading out more. I think we've been more than generous in answering your questions tonight.
You know what? I think this Peter Grace avatar here that's appearing in the questions section all night is actually a Russian bot, an AI that's been automatically generated because you guys talk about Peter Grace so much.
Well, so that's that's the next step, that AI it creates caricatures of people.
The machines
Why
know
not?
shut them down. Yeah.
Do we want to wrap
Deepfake.
up
let's
soon,
call it.
or
Let's call it. It's
Yep, I'm wrecked.
yeah? So we've got to do all the different plugs before we end the show. Steele's just come into the studio here. Steele, do you want to come over and plug? Yes, plug Deck Nation.
No, I don't want to. But can you ask people? Can you ask them how many of these accounts are gone?
What?
How many of these accounts? Can you do a call out to see if anybody has information on these accounts?
On what accounts?
People's bank accounts.
Yes, we've already discussed it.
The call out.
All right. Yes, if you're
Seeking further information.
Yeah, if your ANZ bank account has been closed, or you've got a letter for people who want to, or that ANZ are intending to close your account, please, The Unshackled, XYZ, Rational Rise, contact details, they're everywhere. You can let us know, because, well, mainstream media aren't going to cover it, and so it's up to us and the alternate media. And there's certainly not going to be some lawyer from Slater and Gordon or Maurice Blackburn who's going to take up a class action against the banks on our behalf.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah, we want to hear from you.
I was also wanting you to plug Detonation, Steel, because I always forget it. Come on over and just do it. Ah, come on!
Leave him alone, Tim. You plug it.
He'll be fine. Yeah.
Oh, I just won't mention it then. I just won't mention Detonation.
I like Detonation.
He hasn't put his studio makeup on yet.
Still playing some 4D chess. I like where he's going with it.
It's your last chance to come over on Entropy and send us a super chat.
Some shekels.
Yeah, or if you haven't asked us a question yet, you can. We're only taking first timers now. First time for the evening. The result. Oh, you're doing that. It's officially a white supremacist symbol now. Your blocking is okay sign.
Ah.
I know, David's always
With your okay sign, yeah.
that.
You're completely blocking his face.
He's blocking him.
Somebody said Tim keeps Steele in the studio closet. Yes, I let him out of the closet occasionally.
He can neither confirm nor deny that.
Steele can hear it, so he can I'll just say a whole bunch of stuff about him, and he can come on and rebut it.
You're trying to goad him to come on.
Yeah.
No, not good.
Deanna says I need to answer her email, but I don't recall seeing one. So I'll look it up, Deanna, and I'll get back to you if I can find it.
Okay. So we've got, of course, on the Unshackled's productions are, of course, Detonation, which is now on its dedicated YouTube channel. There's, of course, my program, Wilms Front, which is on my personal Tim Wilms channel. It's live 7 p.m. Melbourne time every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday nights. But I am doing the Sunday show occasionally during this time, just because it takes a lot of preparation these days to do these shows, because I mentioned before that I've got to filter through so much fake news, because you can't use Google or Wikipedia to get proper information anymore.
Well, you can use Google to find out what the fake news is.
Yes, that's the only thing it's worth for. But because if you type in Hunter Biden corruption, for example, it just has seen in the New York Times saying this has been debunked. There's no corruption. End of story.
Yeah. They
love that word, debunked.
Yeah. It's I did an impression on mainstream media when they're talking about They're trying to get us to stop talking about a particular story, labeling it a conspiracy theory. They just go, it's fake, it's fake, it's fake, believe us, it's fake! That's what they're like.
Good
That was
impression.
good.
Good impression.
Yeah.
And XYZ Productions, what are they?
Yeah, come along and watch Maddie and I talk for an hour and a half or so every Monday night at 9 o'clock. You'll find us at Maddie Rose Live on YouTube. Also, come straight to the XYZ, xyz.net.au, and we put something up every morning, and usually something in the afternoon.
What time zone? You got to say what time zone.
Oh, Australian Daylight Saving Time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Rational Rise, what's
Australian
happening
Eastern Daylight
there
Time.
at the moment?
Well, I'm just all over the shop at the moment. I'm doing videos when I feel like them. Sometimes they're uploads, sometimes they're streams. Not a lot of streams happening at the moment, but I'm in the process of moving house. So I'm really going to be kicking off the James Fox Higgins show again from January with a vengeance. There'll be at least 3 live streams a week, and they will be at regular times. I'm probably going to be aiming to do it as more of a morning show because Tim is clogging all the primetime hours with his relentless broadcasting, and also most of my audience is American, so it works better for them if I do it in the AM in Australia. So I'll keep everyone updated once I figure out what my broadcasting schedule is. But in the meantime, all of us are coming together at rationalrise.tv, where we're getting new people on board very soon, including Dia Beltran and Dusty Bogan will be jumping on the Rationalise TV train as well very shortly. We've got John Mark from the Proprietarian Movement. We've got Maddie Rose, of course, and the XYZ/Z. We're going to have to run a poll on whether it's Z or Z.
It's Z.
And
it's actually Z.
it's Z, yeah.
Yeah, it is Z.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And did you say Z before? I'm sorry.
Well, how do you say, what is it?
It's supposed to be Z.
Do
but I
you
always
say it Zeke or Zek?
What?
You're not getting what I'm saying.
No, I don't get it.
No one is.
It's nearly 11 o'clock.
Dave is terrible at picking up the hints that I give.
I'm so tired.
But hey, James, it's not just me clogging up primetime. It's also Dia Beltran and the Dusty Bogan because I have to finish at 8:15 p.m. on the dot Melbourne time Wednesday because that's when she starts her weekly live streams, and everyone just goes over. Well, she's the established one in that time slot, so they all desert me if I don't finish by 8:15 anyway and go over to check out hers. And she's also hosting a Sunday night debate forums at 9 p.m. Melbourne time over on her channel as well.
Is Hogarth coming back?
I don't know.
Oh, mate. Oh, a freak show.
Apparently, I'm up for a debate. I'm up for a debate soon on Dia's show, so that'll be interesting. Just seeking clarification on the proposition and my position, but should be a good one.
You know what's funny is that she interviews everyone except for me because she's afraid that I'll isolate her audience, and she's afraid of my arguments. I don't know, but she told me that she'll interview me one day, and then all of a sudden, she's probably thinking that a lot of her supporters wouldn't like me on it because apparently I'm too far right. Because she interviews Blair and Neil and stuff, and I'm nothing about
mate,
them.
you're obviously a racist, you know. So
well, you got your YouTube channel terminated, and yes, you are quite mean to her good friend Kwaku.
Yeah, well, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Don't worry, I don't want to talk about it. But the good thing is that my page is back up. So my YouTube channel is down permanently, but for some reason my page got unzucked. So if you're on Facebook, you go back on and give it a like and follow the page.
And you're also setting up a BitChute channel as well.
Oh mate, I thought BitChute was okay, but it's actually quite. I don't like it.
It is actually really
so
shit.
difficult.
I hate it as well.
Yeah, so I might be contacting James about potential partnership with Rational Rise. We haven't discussed that yet.
Yeah.
but I am going to call you, mate. I'm sorry I didn't call you when I said I would.
All good.
Yeah, I
More of a
keep
long-term
kicking
thing.
myself. I keep forgetting, but we'll have a chat soon about that for sure.
No worries, yeah.
You should
See what
actually,
happens.
James, get the spudflix.tv domain just as a redirect.
Yeah, shit. I should do that right now because you've said it on the air, and some other cunt's going to go and do it.
And we've all had our experiences with social media, big tech censorship. Of course, we all have our respective websites, unshackled.net, xyz.net.au, rationalrise.com. We all are on, well, my favourite free speech social media is gab.com. We're all on there. I also like Telegram as well, the encrypted messaging app, which...
XYZ's going to get on Telegram soon.
Yes, your colleague, Maddie, he has a Telegram channel. The Unshackled has a Telegram channel. Australian Meditations has a extremely unfiltered Telegram channel.
No holds barred, hey?
Oh, good.
And of course, all of the deplatformed patriots are on Gab and Telegram. So Blair Cottrell, Neil Erikson, one of the regular commenters here, Never Rest. He's amassed over 1,000 Gab followers. So he's done well over there. There's a few others. The Grand Bogan as well. They're huge Gab account as well. And
The problem with Gab is there's no feminists there to taunt. And I've been having way too much fun on Twitter lately.
Maybe Peter Grace will come on.
Onto Gab.
Because I know that he reads Gab.
You should have a Gab channel.
Maybe whoever's been posing as him tonight, he's put another question in, by the way. Maybe whoever's posing as Peter tonight, might like to go and create a Gab account on Peter's behalf. That could be fun.
That'd be amazing.
And this show, of course, has its own website, the Uncuckables.com. We can check out the archive of episodes, 31 episodes now. You can also make sure you are subscribed and click the bell to allow notifications. So we do aim to start at 8:30 p.m. Melbourne time every Thursday, but it can be delayed because Dave is late or I need to duck off last minute toilet break. And we also have a podcast form as well, so you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. So there's heaps of ways to listen to us. We've had a big audience tonight, and they've stuck with us right until the end. So
Appreciate
thank you,
everybody.
Everyone. I noticed
we are
that
all over the internet like a right-wing rash, aren't we?
I noticed that we're up to, as of the time of this recording, 488 subscribers.
Ripper.
That's good. We just need a 1 in front of that, and we're laughing.
Yeah. So did you say there was one more question there?
Was there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, from Peter. Yeah.
It keeps asking it. Like I've gotten rid of it. Like yeah.
This is a question from Peter Grace. He wants to know, why are my pants wet?
Gravity.
It's nothing to be ashamed of, really.
No. Like
It's no, hang on a sec. I got another theory. It's his period. Menopausal.
But that's
well, that would explain the whole haemophilia thing. Yeah.
all right.
Well, guys, it's been fun.
It's been a pisser.
It has been.
Let's get hell out of here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, fellas.
Yeah.
See ya. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Have a good one. All the best.
Good night.
The Uncuckables.